Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 90, and you're watching two of your favorite Anglican characters sit down and give you the weekly news. And well, you're saying it hasn't been weekly lately. Well, that's because we're using the lunar calendar, not your earthly calendar. Right, George?
Well, it's sort of like morning prayer. Here at Anglican Unscripted, we have it the first and third Sundays of the month.
I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. And today is February 3rd, 2014.
George, let's move on to our first story for Anglican Unscripted, episode 90. There's been a war going on since we last recorded our show 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. It was a little while ago before I went to Israel. George and I were talking about this before the show. What are we going to call it? And we came up with the Noodle War is what we're going to call it. Tell us about a Noodle War. What's a noodle?
Well, Kevin, as you know, a little bit of background. In Florida, it is standard in all clergy contracts that we all have swimming pools in the back of the house. Now, if you're a cardinal rector, you have a beachside house, and mine's only about 5 houses from the ocean, so that shows I have a mission congregation. But we all have pools, and everybody who has a pool knows what a noodle is. It's this long styrofoam tube that 7- and 8-year-olds use to whack each other over the head. It makes a great deal of splashing, a great deal of noise, but there's no substance, no pain. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's the equivalent of a handbag fight, as Peter Old wrote the other day, and that's what's going on in the Canterbury African wars on homosexuality. It's all smoke, no substance.
It is, because the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Archbishop of York penned a letter saying, hey, a lot of people here have been asking questions about how we feel about what's going on with Africa and their anti-homosexual laws. So let us remind you of what you guys told us in the Drama Team communique some time ago, that all people should be loved. You know, they stated
Kevin,
the obvious.
I'm going to jump in right here because
you were there.
Justin Welby wasn't at Dromonteen. Johnson Thomas wasn't at Dromonteen. I was. Dromonteen put out what I call a Coca-Cola commercial communique. I'd like to teach the world to sing. And all the bishops stood on the side of a hill and held a little Coke bottle and sang about peace, love, and harmony. And one of those things that they said is that we should extend the love of God to gay people. Mm-hmm. This is not controversial. No. This is what was said in the 1998 Lambeth Statement. This is what the church has said throughout history. We should love all people. That doesn't mean we should tolerate the things that they do or support them, but we still believe that all people are created in God's image. At the 2005 Dromonteen Conference, a reporter from a gay publication asked Henry Arambi, well, what about you Ugandans? You're supporting these terrible laws that will criminalize homosexual conduct. And aren't you a hypocrite? And Henry Arambi got up and he said, look, several things here. First, you have to learn to differentiate between an African government and an African church. Yes, the Church of Uganda is against gay marriage. No, we are steadfastly against the persecution, violence, oppression of gay people. We believe all are created in the image of God. We're against persecution. You wouldn't hold the European or American politicians to this standard of what the government does, the church does, and if you're in favor of this, you must be in favor of that. That's racism. That's hypocrisy.
Sure.
So in 2005, we had the same nonsense that we're getting from Johnson Tamu and Justin Welby. They just don't read my stuff. I'm sorry. These guys are ignorant.
Well, there is a news analysis on Anglican Inc. if you guys want to go look at it. The reality is there was never a controversy here. The church does not support these laws. There's a lot of Muslim influence going on that makes these laws part of the constitutions now of some of these countries. It's not what you think, and just because you don't see the Church of Uganda issuing press statements every hour on the hour saying they oppose it does not mean that they do not oppose it.
Kevin, you also need to remember who was the real audience for this letter.
Yes.
It's not the Africans. Mm-hmm. It's English domestic church politics. Welby and Sentamu are up against the pro-gay crowd in the Pilling Report. They need a convenient target to deflect and defer anger. And it's so easy to whip up racist anger against Africans on homosexuality. It's just boom, like that. You can do it in a second with these liberals in England. And part of the reason why the Africans are so upset is not only do they realize that they're being used as a political scapegoat, but also they have been trying very hard to ameliorate these laws. Read what the Muslims wanted to put into these laws in Nigeria. Yeah. The Catholics and the Anglican church leaders have been trying to soften things. And the same in Uganda. It's the politicians who are pushing this, and the Christian churches are trying to soften. But they don't get any credit for this.
Yeah. Well, like you said, the audience was England, and I don't know how well it played in England, but it didn't play too well in Africa because the Africans, the leaders, were quick to respond. We got a nice response from Archbishop Wabakula and a nice response from Archbishop Stanley. And each one really said, what on earth are you talking about? You know, you guys, you're going over stuff we've covered. Lambeth 110, they mentioned all the communiques. They mentioned the full context of all the communiques. Are we going to have a Noodle War, or are we going to have a Noodle War?
Well, we have a war of press statements. Mm-hmm. Another reason why you know this is not a serious issue is because it was done in public, and that these African leaders got knowledge of this after people like you and I got the advanced copies of the press statement.
Yeah. Via that magic icon we call Skype, I have Peter Old, all the way from Canterbury, to talk about all things English. Well, not really. We're going to talk about the bishops of Jersey Shore. I hope you get the reference. So lots happened over in that small island of Jersey in the last 3 weeks that we haven't been able to cover because I was out of town. And let's cover it now. The Archbishop of Canterbury has replaced somebody. Give us the background, what happened and why it happened.
Okay, so while you were having a jolly over in Israel,
yes,
things have moved apace over in the Channel Islands in Jersey and Guernsey. To remind your listeners, Jersey and Guernsey have been part of Winchester Diocese in the Church of England, but technically Jersey and Guernsey are two separate countries, not part of the United Kingdom, loyal to the Crown, as we all are, apart from you rebels.
Sorry.
But separate countries, okay? And there's been a little bit of a problem over a report and relationships breaking down and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, what has happened is that the Bishop of Winchester, Tim Dakin, has delegated his episcopal authority to the Archbishop of Canterbury. And the Archbishop of Canterbury has gone, oh, thank you for that. And he's delegated that episcopal authority onto Trevor Wilmot, who is the Bishop of Dover and Canterbury, who basically runs Canterbury Diocese in the Archbishop of Canterbury's absence. So as of about a week ago, Jersey and Guernsey are no longer really part of the Diocese of Winchester, and now a commission is going to be set up to see whether they will go back into the Diocese of Winchester or whether they will become their own diocese, or what kind of solution will there be.
All this is about a report. The bishop commissioned a report, got the report, read the report, probably saw his name in the report, said, you don't need to see the report. And listen, here's the shredder.
Let's remind our viewers, interesting hypothesis, quote, allegedly.
Allegedly.
There was a report that was published almost this time last year by Jan Corris, which basically said that the Dean of Jersey the Dean of Jersey got suspended, and there was a bit of a legal argument because of the peculiarities of how Jersey is set up and with its own canon law, whether the bishop could do that in the first place. Right. So he got suspended, and everybody was very angry about that in Jersey, or most people were. And then it turns out that he didn't do half the bad things that it was alleged that he did, and that made the bishop look a bit... And so the bishop put in place another report to be written, and a visitation by a retired bishop, and this judge who works both in Jersey and the England. There you go. A judge who works both in Jersey and England to basically have a look at some of the issues, and that is Dame Heather Steele, and she's written her report, but Winchester Diocese won't release it. They claim that that somebody's raised a legal objection, but they won't tell us who that person is or what the legal objection is. And a few people are going, you know what? We're not sure that there is one. Come straight with us. So in the light of that, essentially the relationship between the Church of England in Jersey and Winchester Diocese, especially the bishop, has completely broken down. And so now the Archbishop of Canterbury has, to all intents and purposes, intervened and taken Jersey and Guernsey out of the Diocese of Winchester for the moment, and Bishop Trevor Wilmot is going to try and look after them in the interim, and a commission will be put into place to kind of work out what the future is. Lambeth Palace and the Diocese of Winchester are basically saying they'll fix the legal issues and put it back into the Diocese of Winchester, and what I'm hearing from pretty well everybody in Jersey is the Diocese of the Channel Islands is on the way.
You don't sound convinced, though.
I just don't know. The problem is that Jersey has its own canon law, Guernsey has its own canon law, and then the Church of England, the rest of the Church of England has its own canon law. And frankly, this was an accident waiting to happen. And for 400 years, bishops of Winchester have realised that they don't have completely free reign in Jersey and Guernsey, so they just basically play nice and get on with the Dean and make sure everything runs okay, and that's it. And unfortunately, Bishop Tim Dakin stepped in, and I want to suggest, as I've suggested previously, he just got really bad legal advice, and he trod in one, and it stank.
It did. Now, we got lots of new viewers. England, or the UK, is an island. Okay, Jersey is an island.
That little video explaining England, Scotland, Wales, Britain, Great Britain, United Kingdom, Ireland, Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Crown dependencies.
England is having trouble with an island.
Yes, England is having trouble with the island of Jersey, or at least the Diocese of Winchester in England. Yes. What's interesting is, on Jersey, they call Jersey the mainland when they refer to the little islands off Jersey. So places like sort of Alderney and Sark and so on. So, it's an interesting setup there. Jersey is what we call a crown dependency. It's basically loyal to the Queen as the Duke of Normandy, because remember, the English royal family apparently comes all the way back to William the Conqueror, back in 1066, which every schoolboy knows, and so they are basically independent with a loyalty to the Queen, and they get to piggyback on the United Kingdom when it comes to trading with the EU and things like that. But they are, to all intents and purposes, an independent country. And I've heard someone unfairly, though possibly a bit too close to the bone, say Jersey is basically a feudal oligarchy with broadband, and it's turning into a kind of tax haven. There are lots of interests there, lots of monetary interests and power interests, and that's what happens in small places where you want to promote, promote it as a good place to do business from.
For a long time, it has been the buffer from England invading France. So, yeah.
Well, of course, Jersey and Guernsey and the Channel Islands were occupied by Germany during the Second World War, and even after D-Day, the Germans were left there. The British didn't bother sending any troops to liberate them. They were literally left there until the E-Day in May 1945, and Jersey and Guernsey people a little bit teed off about that. Yes. Actually they got sort of bypassing this great kind of liberation, and so Jersey likes being associated with the United Kingdom, but I wouldn't say that they are just sycophantically in love with everything English. Far from it, really.
All right, that's this week's report from Canterbury. Thank you very much. Now, Justin's out of town, so obviously we're going to have some
Justin's
good
in Africa, yeah.
We'll have some good news to talk about next week. Well, news. Did I say good news?
And so he
News
talks to him,
talk
what he
about.
says.
He's off to Sudan and a quick tour of Africa. We'll talk about that next week. Thank you so much this week, Peter.
God bless.
Okay, via the magic of an airplane, an airport, from the East Coast to the West Coast, we have A.S. Haley, the weatherman. Tell me about the weather in Atlanta you were with.
Oh, boy. You don't want to go anywhere near Atlanta, or at least you didn't last week.
Yeah.
All the flights were canceled every day, and it took me 2 days to get back home from Charleston.
Yeah, you flew into Charleston for Mere Anglicanism, where you were well recognized as a star of the blogosphere. But you were flying back through Atlanta, and you got stuck because of the ice storm that stranded thousands of drivers. It was
apparently stranded thousands of flight crews too. They couldn't even get into the airport, so I guess that's why they had to cancel so many flights.
Jeez, yeah, I guess like 6,000 flights were canceled. That's amazing. Yeah. So I'm back from Israel. You're back from your Anglicanism. Let's talk legal news. Last we talked, you were about to do some closing arguments and stuff down in San Joaquin. What's the update there?
Okay, well, we had the closing arguments. They were not so much arguments as a closing discussion that points the judge wanted addressed. And then he's assigned us to do briefs. So the first ones will be due later this month. And the final simultaneous briefs, the same thing we did in Quincy, will be due on March 17th. And then under California law, he has 90 days at that point within which to issue a decision. So look for a decision maybe sometime in May or June.
No, that's not too bad. So there actually is a law that determines he has to make a decision by a certain time. Now, for those people who have...
Otherwise, he doesn't get a paycheck.
Well, if that were more common, that would help a lot. For those people who haven't gone to law school or been to a courtroom before, the judge wants briefs, and then he asks for briefer briefs and briefer briefs. Why is that process so important?
Well, what it does is it gives the judge the attorney's view on all the evidence that came in and points him to the important parts of the trial transcript where he can review the arguments and see what evidence supports each side. He also wants us, and this is a very smart judge, he's very experienced, he wants us to turn in a statement of tentative decision the way we would like him to rule. So he will have two competing versions of the decisions we would like him to do. And that, again, that lets him see the attorneys. They know the case best. They can marshal all the evidence, make the case for themselves as best they can, and then he looks at it and he can pick and choose, cut and paste, and so on what he wants to.
So he can circle the answer he likes.
Correct.
Oh, no wonder California's so screwed up.
Well, we are going to, it's, I say, it's a lot of work between now and then. So that's what we're supposed to do, and we're going to do it.
Okay. Now, there's other cases still pending. We obviously have 2 victories in Texas, but there's an appeals process. What's going on there?
Well, in Texas, both the Episcopal Church and the losing parties, the Diocese of Northwest Texas, in their respective cases, filed petitions for rehearing, saying that the Supreme Court of Texas surprised them with this sudden ruling about neutral principles, and they weren't prepared for it. And so those petitions, which I don't expect would have much traction in the Supreme Court given the way things came down, but they've been now pending for over 3 months. And the Supreme Court has them on a schedule, I assume, where they will eventually announce what they're going to do with them. But what that means is, for the present, there's no proceedings taking place. The cases have not yet gone back to the trial courts, respectively, and so the parties can't proceed. They're just on hold until the Supreme Court gives the final action on these petitions for rehearing.
Now, a lot of conspiracy people will pick up on the fact that you were in Charleston. Were you there for some secret meetings with the legal process down there?
No, as I said, it was mere Anglicanism. A byproduct was meeting those people, but it was mainly to go to the conference, which was truly one of the best things I've ever done in quite some time.
Yeah, we were able to tape, I think, the last 4 or 5. It's a wonderful conference to go to. When I went there first, they had like 60, 70 people, and now they're busting out at about 650 people.
Yeah, 10 times as many, right?
Oh my gosh.
It was, there was also some wonderful choral evensong and a high mass with Bishop Lawrence celebrating. It was a complete experience. I mean, you had liturgy. The lectures backed up the liturgy, and the liturgy gave you expression to what you learned in the lectures. So it was a marvelous, marvelous experience.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you for your weather update, your legal update, and it's time now to return to the real life of a lawyer in Northern California. Thank you again, Alan.
Very good.
Okay, George, this is not our first take. George and I are doing story 2 here, and we're talking about a situation where we're trying to make a best of a situation. Well, George and I aren't trying to make a best of a situation. Many different characters are. Archbishop Justin Welby is in a situation where he's presiding over a broken church. The broken church really was split with the consecration of Bishop Robinson in 2003. And there's never been a time where we've been able to recover or heal from that. That tear in the fabric of the communion still exists today, and the tear is still continuing. It's getting further and further apart. Justin Welby has quite the task in front of him. And he's tried different things over the last year to see what he could do as a peacemaker to help this out. Not a lot of success yet, George. One of the things he's tried recently is appointing an ACNA priest to be a preacher at Canterbury Cathedral. Let's just sit back and say, wow, that is pretty awesome. It's not a regular gig, right, George?
Correct. And Kevin, I want to say first off, the appointment of the Reverend Dr. Tory Balcom, rector of Truro Parish in Northern Virginia, does honor and glory to God. This is a wonderful appointment, but the uses for which some people want to take it are not so great. See, Tory Balcom is a theologically sound preacher and Orthodox pastor. He really is a man of God, and he has been appointed to preach at the Mother Cathedral of the Church of England, to one of positions established 500 years ago. This is a tremendous honor for him, and to have the pure word of God preached from the pulpit of Canterbury Cathedral, that's a fantastic thing. That's wonderful.
That's the truth of the story. But
that's the story.
That's the story.
But then other people are trying to twist and turn and spin this in ways that are not so good.
Well, I think Archbishop Justin Welby and Tory Balcom and the Bishop of Virginia, Shannon Johnson, have a history together. Let's go back about a year for your memories. Tory Balcom had reestablished a friendship with Bishop of Virginia, Shannon Johnson, and it looked to people like Justin Welby that they were once again recognizing each other's ministries, and that there was this romance type thing brewing, and that they had been able to repair that tear in the fabric of the communion. And he looked and said, that is the example that I'm looking for. And he invited them over to England for a Can We All Get Along conference. And that really shook up the ACNA, the blogosphere, and GAFCON, because the reality here is we are not recognizing the Episcopal Church leadership's heresy as legitimate again. We're trying to love our enemy. And there's a lot of confusion that was going on, George.
Well, this is going to confuse our non-American audience, but folks, I want you to think of it this way. Within the political world of the ACNA, conservative Anglicanism, this appointment of Tory Balcom, it's like being Charles Nelson Riley or Paul Lynde and getting the center square at Hollywood Squares.
Oh boy,
that's a big deal.
Yes, it is.
It's going to kill your career professionally. You're never going to make a movie again. The rest of your career, you're going to be answering questions from Peter Marshall.
Yes.
Not the Peter Marshall, Anglicans know, but another Peter
Yes.
Marshall. Now, what does this all mean? There's a great deal of suspicion within conservative Anglican circles that Tory Balcom, by being so honored and by even talking to Shannon Johnson, is a sellout. And that he is compromising his principles to advance himself and to go along and to get along. And there are hard men and one hard woman in the Anglican blogosphere, and you know who we mean, who have just excoriated him for even talking to Tory Balcom and not engaging in the legal wars and the theological battles that have taken place. At the same time, Justin Welby is trying to say, why can't we get all along? He's playing the Rodney King tune. He's following the Rowan Williams playbook by saying, my job as Archbishop is to be a peacemaker, not a decision maker. It's to be a facilitator, not a role model. And all these different perceptives and people and positions are trying to use Tory's appointment for their own political advantage. For instance, in a lower key, not as sinister, the ACNA has adopted the Tom Cruise strategy. Do you know what that is, Kevin?
Well, it's coattails. Basically, if a Hollywood star is a Christian, that means Christianity's been redeemed and everybody should become a Christian. If the Archbishop of Canterbury recognizes an ACNA priest, that is a recognition of the orders of the ACNA. It legitimizes yourself. And in a small part, yes, but it's kind of that Hollywood Squares type thing.
Yeah, it is, but it's not the real point of the matter.
Right.
And then there are liberals in the United States who are saying, oh, it is terrible. Tory Balcom left the Diocese of Lexington under false colors to transfer to Albany, and then he transferred to the Cana and the Church of Nigeria, and Stacey Sauls really didn't let him go, so you're having a maybe deposed priest preach from Canterbury Cathedral. And what an abomination this is. This is totally un-Anglican. Yeah, but he's still preaching the pure word of God. No. It's not, in other words, the political uses for which is being spun detract from the fact that this is somebody who's going to preach the word of God. I mean, we can look at this in a negative fashion, and boy, I love doing that at times, and Kevin and I have tried not to.
We have. I mean, but let's go back to the reality here. The reality is places like Stand Firm in their criticism of that, they are speaking some truth. There's some truth in what they're saying. There should be a more holy approach to this, because from the outside world, and the outside world doesn't see with clear eyes, they're like, wait a minute, an ACNA priest is now recognizing again the ministry of a heretic tech priest. And if that's what's happening, that needs to stop. And I think that that's why that stopped, because a bishop put his foot down and said, the outside world isn't seeing the truth of what's going on here, or the truth of what's going on here isn't being communicated very well. And in all that mishmash, Tory Balcom was still a star in Justin Welby's eyes. And whether this is a reward for what Tory did or not, Tory Balcom is going to get up and be able to preach the Orthodox gospel to people who come into Canterbury. To that, let's give praise. To all the other things, it is what it is. All right, George, let's close out the program. Are we going to start a prayer line for Denver Bronco fans? Did you even pay attention to the game? What was your night like last night?
Well, my wife and kids, they went to a youth group party to watch the Super Bowl game. They didn't get home till about 10:30 or so. Me, I had a great time at home with the cats. I sat at my desk and was writing articles and reading books and just had a nice, peaceful evening.
The Carlsons have had a 4 or 5 year tradition now of having a Super Bowl party. My wife is a Green Bay Packer fan. I'm a Minnesota Viking fan. So we both have lots of Super Bowl history. The Vikings have been to the Super Bowl 4 times and have never won. The Packers have won a couple.
But see, Kevin, I grew up watching the Philadelphia Eagles, and so a long time ago, I just stopped watching the Super Bowl because what was the point?
You have lost the faith.
I lost the faith. I'm an agnostic now. The Eagles, they did it too.
Yes. So I had lots of chili last night. I'm kind of suffering today, but it was worth it all last night. Really incredible game. Maybe we should start a prayer line for Denver Bronco fans. Closing out the show, a lot of you guys know that I was in Israel for the last 2 weeks. I had a great time with CMJ, which is a church Mission to the Jews. It's a UK organization. Are you going to see the video from that? We're working that out with CMJ. They want to do some stuff where they can sell the DVDs, and it was more of a clergy-based thing. So I'll keep you informed about what happens with that in the future.
You just played golf and drank in the evening?
No, it was it was 10 hours on a bus a day. We went to multiple sites, all the way down from Beersheba in the south up to well into the north. On my video, you can hear some of the conflict in the Syrian border. There was some tank mortar rounds going off, so it was quite the tour. And I can't recommend highly enough Sheriff's Tours out of Jerusalem. My tour guide was the Reverend David Pagali. He's the rector of Christ Church in Jerusalem, and he's a great guy. He's also a fan of the show. And so much so that I have to edit out lots of times that he was talking to you on video and not talking to a future clergy audience. But we'll work that out. So I had fun. George, what did you do the last 3 weeks?
Me, I have been very involved in the work of the parish, work of writing, and for the past 4 days I've been working on my taxes because I'm doing my daughter's student loan applications to go off to college. And I'm getting ready to become an empty nester because the twins are going to go off north someplace in about 6 months' time.
Yeah, that's going to be quite a change for you and Susan. So our change happened when Victoria went off to college. It was amazing. I have 3 children, and we did not know that our oldest child was responsible for about 60 to 70% of the noise of the house. Once she left, you could hear crickets again, and you could hear, sounds of creaky boards in the house. She's a texter. She's constantly on the computer, on the remote. You're doing all the studies she does. And is there a dog war going on in the background there?
Well, it is Florida. It is hot. It's in the low 80s today, and the neighbor's walking his Cocker Spaniels. Lovely little dogs.
Yes.
But, I could turn the AC on, but that makes noise as well.
Okay.
I heard it's been cold up north. Is that true?
There's 4 inches of snow outside right now. Schools are closed. It's kind of the tale of 2 cities, Vero Beach, Thomaston, Connecticut. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 90 of Anglican Unscripted.
You look good. All right. You're growing some hair on top.
Well, bits of on top. Look at that lovely little
my gosh.
there.
You got a cap back there. I was just in Israel. Lots of people have those.
I could be somewhere actually. There's the clipper here. Fix.
There you go. Nobody will ever know. That's amazing.
Bullseye.
3, 2, 1. Welcome. Hold on, my cord just fell off here. 3, 2, 1.